Well.
It's been 84 years.
Hello, my fellow sorcerers! Ooh, I have missed saying that. It's about to be Season 2, which means, of course, I am back for all your sorcery needs, build-wise or otherwise. And yeah, I will never stop my endless crusade to make this class, which is clearly, of course, the best one, the actual best one. And, you know, actually looking at the patch notes and the changes going into Season 2, the Vampiric powers, the new legendaries and uniques, we're looking surprisingly healthy. In fact, literally healthy, because for the first time, we get to know what it's like to have resistances. So we might actually stop getting disintegrated by a gust of wind. Oh yes! Glass cannons back on the menu, boys! In any case, first and foremost, I do want to say that Season 2, at a minimum, is looking so unbelievably better than Season 1, it's kind of tragically sad. And while I think a lot of what we're getting and what has been tweaked should have always been that way, and it's still really questionable to me that it wasn't, I will say that everything is heading in a generally positive direction, and I was pleasantly surprised with both big streams and all the information we got. So ultimately, if they are ever going to recapture both the player base's actual numbers and trust, now is the time. We will see how it actually pans out, but I am at minimum excited to try a new set of vampire-infused sorcerer builds, share them with you, and on that regard, first and foremost, is getting to Torment as fast as possible with this, the peak min-max leveling build that will have you there in mere hours as a whirlwind of destruction. Chain Lightning was already peak leveling when it came to Sorcerer before, but now, since the buffs to it and its associated aspects, it is absolutely ridiculous how fast it tears through World Tier 2 all the way into unlocking Nightmare and even Torment. Essentially, what we have here is a way that while leveling, you still have insanely high crit chance, infinite crackling energy, blistering pure clear speed, that also all results in a near 0-second cooldown on unstable currents. While leveling, without stacking cooldown reduction affixes, and while not having anything but Codex aspects, it really is quite the cheat code here, and it works beautifully into some of the key changes and buffs that we are getting to. Essentially, it will just mass permanently AoE clear the entire room you're in sort of automatically, while keeping every enemy on screen infinitely stunned. It's just kinda delicious. And yes, I'm showing you it on my higher level sorcerer on my Eternal Realm, so I can actually show you the full build. It's a normal Torment dungeon, and I've thrown on random garbage gear, plus the Codex aspects that I will be recommending to kinda simulate the right power level, though this is a much harder thing to do than you will experience leveling, as the Torment normal dungeons relative to World Tier 2 leveling have much tankier enemies in, so the fact it's handling this so well is a sign of how much it will dominate on the way to 50. Here we are then, a nice blank slate to work with. We are going to be starting with not Arclash. Yes, indeed, it's time to favour Spark, for reasons that we will get to, but the playstyle we're going for doesn't really benefit from the melee-focused style of Arclashing, as much as I love it. We then want to get Enhanced, and finally finish off with Glinting. Then we're going to come down to our core skills and grab, well, our core skills. So we want to then get Enhanced, and finally we want to get greater. We will be coming back and changing this, but this is the way at the moment. Then we can move on down and get ourselves Teleport alongside Enhanced Teleport, and then finally Shimmering Teleport. We also want to get Frost Nova, our Enhanced Frost Nova of course, and then instead of Vulnerable, we actually want to go for Shimmering. The reason being is that mana is more important while we are leveling up. It's a much more constrictive resource, and with the changes to the damage buckets and the tweaks to Vulnerable, the damage increase is nowhere near as necessary in those early World Tier 2 stages heading towards Nightmare and then Torment. So this works out really nicely. We also want to grab 1 rank of Elemental Attunement just so it can happen. Then we can come down here and we will get Hydra. This lets us then get Enhanced and then finally Summoned, which is getting quite the monstrous buff and will massively amp your single target damage when it is around. Now we want to go back and get Fireball for our first enchantment slot. This increases your clear speed something fierce with all of its damage pops, and we are now looking very, very nice. We want to finish off Chain Lightning, actually amp its damage as much as possible, as it is where essentially all of our damages come from. And along a similar vein, we want to pump Fireball a little bit to increase that potency, as it's the other major source of our killing power, which means we can now get to these. The most important thing to immediately grab then is 3 points in Coursing Currents to start actually amping our crit chance. Getting this lets us do a little bit of a shift. That shift being going back up and getting Lightning Spear. We then want Enhanced Lightning Spear, and we want Invoked Lightning Spear for that constant room-wide lockdown stun. This will help us out in a lot of ways, but for now, we shall grab it, and essentially it's just going to replace Hydra on your bars. Hydra is much more the carry for the lower levels until we reach this nice point. Then we are going to come down here and grab ourselves Unstable Currents alongside Prime and then Supreme. And the buff to Supreme, meaning Crackling Energy is 25% faster while it's on, essentially means 25% more cooldown reduction while it's on, which is really noticeable and one of the key things we play with. Then we want to go back all the way to the top and finish off our Fireball. At this point we will have our second enchantment slot, and you want to use Chain Lightning for it to double up on them every 100 mana. It's very efficient and indeed potent. Then we can head back down to the Mastery and get Static Discharge, primarily to then go into Invigorating Conduit. Though once we unlock our key passive, we want to of course get it, and it is Overflowing Energy. Yeah, we will be playing around with Crackling Energy while leveling, which is not only really exciting, but it's really powerful and it's so quick. The speed at which you will just decimate everything just running past and through dungeons is kind of ridiculous. And now that we have Overflowing Energy, we can make another little adjustment. Firstly, just whack a point in Potent Warding. We will get back to this because it's shockingly good now, but get rid of Greater and switch over to Destructive to start forming those crackling energies. Then we want to finish off our Invigorating Conduit for even more mana when we pick them up, and now we start to have the real true core of the build online. We want to head up and finish Potent Warding, as with both the buff to it and the fix and change to resist, this represents an absolutely massive amount of tankiness to elemental damage, and all being well, assuming it's implemented correctly, we're going to really feel it. And talking of being harder to kill, we want to come down here now that we have our crit engine online and grab Electrocution, and then we want more stuns to happen with Convulsions. Then we want to get our classic duo of defensives, the Mana Shield and protection, and don't worry too much about not having fire shield or ice armor at this stage. You really just don't need it. Things aren't deadly enough while leveling, and Frost Nova and Teleport more than do the job. With your last 6 points then, you want to get 1 rank in Devastation, and then the final 3 in Dominance, just to get an extra 9% damage on our Chain Lightning, and then the last 2 can go, well, it's sort of up to you, but at this stage I like to just put them in Glass Cannon, as again, all being well, we can actually handle this just fine now, and that's really exciting. You also want to take Shimmering and make it Mystical to increase the crackling energy potency and run the core of the build even better. Before we go over how to pilot this then, let's talk gear. Fixes and stats-wise, etc. isn't a huge factor while leveling. You're replacing gear too often, and it's not going to make a big difference. Generally, though, crit chance, crit damage, and attack speed, and you will be golden. Same with weapons. There's nothing to recommend here legendary aspect-wise, because you always just want to put on the highest item power weapon you find. Ideally, still Wand and Focus for the increased attack speed, but other than that, just put on the highest one you get, and you are good. What we can control, though, is our accessories, as they can just sit there as legendary aspect sticks, and you just don't need to upgrade them. At least not until you start thinking about an actual build towards Torment. So, for these then, and of course I'm only going to choose Codex ones, so you have guaranteed access to them, we want Prodigies. That's a good old classic of using a cooldown, giving you mana. We have 4 cooldowns on our bars, so this is a good, healthy amount of resource for Chain Lightning. Talking of healthy amount of resource for Chain Lightning, we also want Recharging. This changed, buffed aspect is so glorious for Chain Lightning. That bit of mana, every bounce is delicious, and you really feel it, and is also in your Codex. Finally then, on your necklace, we do want Control for the extra damage to Frozen, Stunned, and Immobilized. Everyone is going to be stunned all of the time with this build, and a bit of Frozen too, so this is a huge amp. That said, if you happen to find while leveling this Unbroken Tether, the extra chance to chain more times, it's not in the Codex in Season 2, sadly, but if you do find it, then put this on your necklace, and then put Control on your gloves, and then just let them sit there, as that's the ideal way round, but we can't guarantee this shows up, so if it doesn't, then leave Control on your necklace. Past that, you want to put Disobedience on your legs, that's also of course in the Codex, and then another very key one is Shared Misery on either your helmet or your boots, also from the Codex. This is what lets your stuns and freezes spread across the entire room, and just permanently lock down every enemy you ever see. Past that, then, it is essentially use whatever drops you feel like. If you want more defensiveness, then you can put Might on your chest from the Codex, and then if you happen to get the drops, Accelerating and Abundant Energy are very good, and they can go on your weapons if for some reason you feel the insane need to imprint your weapons while leveling. So, with that all said then, let's actually talk shop. All in all, it's very kind of self-explanatory and straightforward. Hit a large group of enemies with your Frost Nova to lock them down, spread the freeze, but most importantly, regenerate a load of mana for more Chain Lightnings. With your Spark, we get it both to have a ranged basic to spam, as Chain Lightning is ranged, and it just makes everything much more comfortable. It's the main reason for not taking Arclash, but the other main reason is the increased critical strike chance that stacks up, and crits power the build. They power the crackling energy coming down on Chain Lightning, critting the enemies will stun them with your Lightning Spear, it will spawn more crackling energies, and generally we just want to be critting a lot, and crit is a big single damage increase with the damage bucket changes, and is another reason we don't need vulnerable on Frost Nova for now, as the increase of stacking up with crit is nowhere near as severe as it used to be. In any case then, we have our Spark. What you essentially want to do is just make sure that you keep up this 8% critical chance, which basically means get to your 4 stacks, and then once every 5 seconds before it runs out, you just want to do another one, and then keep maintaining that crit chance bonus. During the rest of the time, you're just spamming Chain Lightning. And that's it. It's as simple as it can be. The rest of the time, you're teleporting to speed on. You are using your Lightning Spear on cooldown, which will then just completely start to stun everyone, which is really nice. There we go. And other than that, yeah, just zap them all. Collect your crackling energy. That will obviously keep pulsing out and out, reducing the cooldown of everything on your bars, which makes this build flow so fast, even early on. And then, if you ever find yourselves with a large group of enemies, hit your unstable currents, and watch them all just kind of melt by as your fireball chain really does take effect, and also have a great time enjoying just how fast unstable currents comes off cooldown, despite this being an early game build that isn't stacking cooldown reduction. It's kind of silly. You only ever have to wait about 5 to 15 seconds for it, and it's already back. It really cannot be overstated how smoothly this all works, and just having permanent crackling energy is so nice while leveling, because generally it's enough damage by itself to just kill things, so you really can just run past and make everything fall before you as you get to where you need to go. So, let's do a little bit of Paragoning. Just going to do the literal first board, as if you get to your second board, you will probably be switching builds to a more actual endgame focused one, so just do this path with your initial splash of Paragon points, and grab yourself Enchanter for just that pure non-physical damage increase, as it's the single greatest thing we can do at this point, and with the resistance actually being fixed, the resistance buff isn't the worst either to both fire and lightning, as they're in our enchantment slots. It's minor, we're here for the non-physical damage, but at least now it actually does something, so isn't that wonderful? All that's left then is to address the vampire in the room and actually talk vampiric powers. Which ones to actually look out for and which ones to apply through your leveling journey. Now, we don't know really too many details on these. Well, we know what they all are and generally how to apply them, but in terms of are they separated by world tiers? Can you have more than one major power? Which power comes from which unlock activity? That's a bit more mysterious, so all I can do is recommend the ones that most complement this setup, and once you get hold of them, well, put them in. Anticipation then is first up for just a nice flat 20% CDR off unstable currents. That's just a really nice little benefit to this build. Then after that you want Domination, as it's essentially just an extra copy of Aspect of Control, so really that works wonderfully, and indeed the feared part of it will also come into play. We then want to have a Hectic to get our cooldowns down while we keep maintaining our Sparks buff. Then Terror is what I would recommend for leveling, as the chance to fear everyone is just extra layers of CC that also stacks with Dominion, and it gives us a guaranteed crit chance while they're all feared, which is obviously ludicrous given our entire build is crit focused, and that is a big spike every time that happens. Honestly, just a cursed touch, as none of the others are really crazy for this one, and the Vampiric Curse is at least something extra to add on top of it, but in this case the minor powers are more exciting for Sparks Chain Lightning leveling than the majors. So, with that all said then, I hope you find this useful, powerful, and may your leveling to Torment be speedy. I have so many ideas for some awesome sorcerer setups using the vampire powers and the changes, and I really cannot wait to bring you them. But for now, good luck in Season 2, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.